Welcome back. Today we're gonna show you a comprehensive step-by-step Ionic 5 Vue tutorial on building secure mobile apps that login or authenticate to the OAuth2 server. This time we are using Vue.js and Vuex to build and manage the logics for these mobile applications. To accessing the REST API OAuth2 server, we will use the Axios module. After all, these mobile apps will build to the Android and iOS using Capacitor. This tutorial divided into several steps. Step number 1. Create a new Ionic 5 application. Step number 2. Install the required modules and components. Step number 3. Create a Vue service. Step number 4. Create Vuex store. Step number 5. Implementing login, register, and secure page. Step number 6. Run and test Ionic 5 Vue OAuth2 application. The following tools, frameworks, and modules are required for this tutorial. Node.js with npm or yarn, Ionic CLI, Vue.js and Vuex, Axios, Node Express MongoDB OAuth2 server, terminal or Node command line, IDE or text editor. Before start to the main steps, make sure you have installed the Node.js and can run npm or yarn. To check the installed Node.js, npm or yarn, type these commands from the terminal or Node command line. Let's get started to the main steps. Step number 1. Create a new Ionic 5 application. As we mentioned in the previous paragraph, we will use Ionic CLI to create Ionic 5 with Vue.js projects or applications. Type these commands to install the latest Ionic 5 application. To create a new Ionic 5 with Vue.js and tabs mode, type these commands. Leave all questions as default by press enter. To working with this Ionic 5 Vue.js app, open these projects with your IDE or text editor. To run these applications for the first time, type this command. Install the Ionic lab module if it's required by press Y. To run as the lab in the browser. And here it is, the Ionic 5 and Vue.js applications look like. Stop the running Ionic 5 applications by press Ctrl+C. Step number 2. Install and configure all required modules. To access the OAuth2 server via REST API, we will use the Axios module. For state management pattern, we will use Vuex. Vuex we use to simplify the API call to the OAuth2 server. So, there is no direct call to the OAuth server from the components. Also, we need a stringified JSON objects by using QS. To install all of them, type this command. Make sure the Vuex versions is using 4000 and above to make this tutorial working. Next, configure Vuex to working with Ionic Vue and TypeScript codes by open and edit src sims vue.d.ts. Then add this line at the end. Next, for all configurations that use by API and OAuth2 access, create a new file at the root of the projects folder. Fill that file with this configuration variable. Step number 3. Create a Vue service. To separate and reuse API calls logics, we create or recreate services. For that, create a new folder and files. We will put Axios and its functionality in the API services TS. So the other services will use the same functions to do requests to the REST API, except token service TS is used to manage OAuth access token and refresh token. Next, open and edit SRC services, API service TS, then add these imports. We will add the required imported class later. Next, add a constant variable of API service. Inside the constant variable body, add these local variables that use for HTTP interceptor operation. Add a method or functions to initialize the Axios-based REST API URL. Add a method or functions to intercept the HTTP request headers, parameter for authorizations token that received after the successful login. Add a method or functions to clear the HTTP request headers. Add a method or functions to implement the Axios get, post, put, delete, and custom request. Add the methods or functions to intercept the HTTP request, then show the Ionic or Vue loading controller. Add the methods or functions to intercept the HTTP response with 401 status. So the captured 401 status will redirect to the login page by calling the sign out function. Otherwise, the 401 status will treat as the expired token that will trigger the refresh token function. Add the methods or functions to eject the HTTP 401 response status interceptor. Export above constant functions as a TypeScript module. Next, open and edit src services token service.js. Then add these constant variables to hold the access token and refresh token names. Add a main constant variable that holds all the required functions or methods. Insert that variable or main functions body, add this crud create, read, update, delete functions to populate the access token and refresh token. For this tutorial, the token will save to the local storage, but for productions, you can use the Ionic Secure Storage native library. Export that main constant as a TypeScript module. Next, open and edit src services auth service.ts. Then edit required imports. Create a class after the imports that handle the authentication error. Create a class after the imports that handle the authentication error. Create a main constant variable that contains all required functions for authentication to the OAuth server. Insert that main constant, add an asynchronous function to request the authentication token to the OAuth server. The request contains authorization headers with the encrypted OAuth2 client's ID and secret values. The request body using URL encoded form and the content of the body form in a string field JSON object. The response from the server are a user ID, access token, refresh token, and their expiration date. The access token and refresh token will save to the local storage. Also, the HTTP interceptor activated to catch the 401 error status. Add the functions to request a new token by refresh token. This function is similar to the previous functions except for the request body that just uses grade type and refreshes token value. Add the functions to sign out or log out the logged in user by clean up the tokens and request headers only. Add the functions to request post data to create a new user to the OAuth server. This time, the request body just using a plain or raw body with JSON format. are the functions to calls from the previous functions when a request to API failed. Export that main constant as a TypeScript module. Next, open and edit is RC, services, home service.js. Then add these few TypeScript codes that contain the request to the secure API endpoint. Next, add or register the above services to the main TS after the app's constant. The API service uses the variable from the .env file that previously created. Step number 4. Create Vuex store. To manage the state or calls to the services, create a folder and files like this. Next, open and edit is RC store OAuth2 TS. Then add these imports. Add a constant variable that contains the key value pair of the state objects. Add a constant variable to get the required states. This time we just return authentication error code and error message. Add the actions constant variable that contains the operations to handle the states of login, register, refresh token, and logout. Also call the commits of the state mutations. Other constant variables that defines all commits that previously called from the action. Export the main constant as the auth module that performs states, getters, actions, and mutations. Next, open and edit is RC store Home.ts, then add these lines of Vuex codes to handle the state of the secure API only. Next, open and edit is RC store in XTS. Then add these imports and register the previously created store modules. Finally, register the store to the main TS by adding it to the app constant. Step number 5. Implementing login, register, and secure page. Now we will implement the login or register using the existing page as the secure page to the Vuex. For that, create a new Vue files inside the src Vuex. Next, open and edit src Vuex signin.vue. Then add the Ionic Vue templates that contains a login form with username and password input text, sign in button to submit the form, and sign up button to go to the sign up page. Add a Vue script tags with TypeScript language. Inside the script tags, add these imports of the required components in the templates and in the scripts. Add the main exported Vue module that contains the name components that used by templates, set up the Vue router, the form data, instantiates the getters from the auth store modules, and the method to submit the form. Next, open and edit src Vuex sign up Vue. Then add these lines of Vue templates and Vue TypeScript scripts to handle the sign up form. Finally, modify the existing src Vuex tab 1 Vue, then replace all Vue templates and scripts to this. Next, we will add a security or securing the page in the router, and also add the previously added sign in and sign up page. For that, open and edit src router index.ts, then replace all index.ts TypeScript code with this. As a default, this route is secured except for the meta public value to true, and only when logout to true will get exception from the secure page. And here's how we make it. The all pages is secure, and it requires a token or successful login before accessing the route. Step number 6. Run and test Ionic 5, Vue, or OAuth2 application. Before running the Ionic Vue app, run the PostgreSQL server and Express OAuth server in separate terminal tabs. After everything running during terminal tabs, then run these commands to run the Ionic Vue app to the iOS simulator. It seems like we have an error occurred while running subprocess Capacitor. This because we don't have any index.html file in this folder. So we will run build first before running to iOS or Android. And now we have the error caused by dependency not found in router index.ts. We can fix it because the file name not same as the previously created sign-in file name. Let's try to build again this Vue or Ionic Vue application. Now the build is complete and we have the this directory, so we can run again the iOS simulator. The Xcode will start after building the iOS, or you can manually open the Axios workspace file from the Xcode, then run the iOS applications to the simulator from the Xcode. And here's the application looks like. Next, to run the Ionic Vue apps to the Android devices, type these commands. The Android Studio will open, then connect your Android devices to your computer, then run the Android app from the Android Studio. If there's a network error when accessing the API from the device, then open the Android app, this rc main Android manifest XML, then add this parameter to the application stack. Then run again the Android apps to the Android device. That is the Ionic 5 Vue tutorial for OAuth2 login example. You can get the article and the full source code link in the descriptions below. Thank you.